Welcome to Functional Philosophy. I'm Charles Tew. That's T as in tango, E as in echo, and W as in whiskey. This is episode number 21, and its title is Christianity and the West. Hello everyone. Today is going to be probably a shorter, less edited episode. I didn't get a lot of sleep, and I am just recording something to put out so that I have something. But I think this episode will be interesting nonetheless. But you probably noticed by now that I tend to ramble. I go off on long tangents, and I allow myself to do that. That's part of the value of speaking extemporaneously. Something I hate when I listen to podcasts is to hear people get excited about something, and they clearly have a lot to say on the subject, but they cut themselves short because, well, the listeners don't want to hear this, or this isn't what I promised to talk about. No, I want to hear what they're interested in talking about. Whatever the speaker is passionate about, that's what's valuable to the listener. So I let myself go, and I hope you like that. I mean, if it's particularly egregious, I may cut it out, but hopefully that won't be the case today. So I'm going to talk about this idea that Christianity is what is essential about the West, that it is what makes the West the West. Or Christianity, Christians, as Sargon likes to say. God, that annoys me. I don't know if there's some precedent, if that's some historically correct way to say it, or if it's a British thing. I don't know. I hate British accents in general, by the way. Actually, I hate all forms of English, spoken English, except Midwestern American. I hate Southern, Boston, New York, Canadian, to the extent that it has its little tweaks. I hate upper and lower class British and both main forms of Australian. I think they're all objectively inferior to the standard Midwestern American accent that you see on TV. I mean, I don't think it was an accident that people were trained to speak on TV in that way. News anchors, people like that. There's just something about all other forms of English that it revels in laziness, sloppiness, imprecision, shortcuts. It's, lack of clarity and sharpness. But anyway, so that's one of those tangents I was just talking about. So, Christianity and the West. Jordan Peterson is partially responsible for this. The new alt-right is partially responsible for this, and the idea is that Christianity is really what makes the West different. Now, that could not be further from the truth. What makes the West the best is not religion of any kind. Now, it's true. In a certain sense, Christianity is better than other forms of religion. It's not warmongering, at least. The New Testament is much more plausibly and essentially peaceful and apolitical than the Quran is, or the Old Testament. And Christianity is, it does have an element of individualism that it contributed to the West, but that would not have gone anywhere if not for the secular rational foundation established by the Greeks. And it's the Greeks who are really responsible for everything good about the West. The reason that the West is uniquely amazing is that the Greeks invented secular philosophy and bequeathed it to us, to their descendants who are the West. So the West begins with Greece. The idea that we're better because we just have the right religion is idiotic. Ben Shapiro likes to talk about Athens and Jerusalem. And you have to have both, reason and faith. Well, you don't. Faith is nothing but a hindrance. It's certainly not good alone. There was a time in the West when we had Christianity basically without Greek influence. That was called the Dark Ages. And during that time, the Muslims had actually translated Aristotle, and they had the apotheosis of Greek thought. And they had what's called their Islamic Golden Age. Now, eventually they got rid of that because of a philosopher named Al-Ghazali. They dropped the Greek rational thought and recommitted to religion, and you see the barbarism they exist in today. Now, the West picked it back up with St. Thomas Aquinas through Maimonides, the Jewish philosopher. So right as the Muslims dropped the Greeks, the West picked them up. So we also have a period in time where we have both religion and rationality. Aquinas tried to create this synthesis. And we got the Renaissance. Then we had a period where religion was further de-emphasized, and reason was even more ascendant. Reason waxed and religion waned further. That was called the Enlightenment, and America was born out of that. So you can look in broad terms throughout history and it's clear. To the extent that there is religion, things go very poorly. Now when there's a mix, things go all right, and it all depends on the trend. Which thing is trending, which is ascendant, determines which way you're going to go. Now in the Renaissance, religion was the establishment, but reason, Aristotelianism, that was what had just been injected into the West. So that was the new trend, and things were getting better. So if you just look at history, it's clear. When all the West has is Christianity, it's no better than the Oriental swamp. The Greeks, and particularly Aristotle. That's what's distinctive about the West. So all these people talking about how we have to respect Christianity, because even if we're not believers, we have to respect the fact that Christianity made the West what it is. No, it did not. And I find it insulting that you have religious people now like Ben Shapiro talking about how we need faith to have all the advances we have. Please, that is... So the church, religious people, fight against rationality and science every step of the way. They burn people, they kill people, they put them under house arrest. You see what they do to people like Galileo and Newton. They fight reason and rationality and empiricism every step, tooth and nail. And then when these heroes break past it, they fight the battle and they win. Then people like Ben Shapiro come in and they want to claim credit, and they say, well, Christianity was always pro-science, and you really need Christianity in order to have science. Please, how unbelievably unjust and insulting. You do everything you can to stop science, and when it finally wins, after it's fought so hard, all that blood, sweat, and tears, then you come in and say, well, we were really on that side all along, and we deserve credit. Pfft. Monstrous. Idiotic. All that great Christian philosophy they like to claim, it's Greek. And Augustine was influenced by Plato, and the Neoplatonists like Plotinus. And Aquinas, of course, was a super Aristotelian. I mean, he was interpreting the Bible through the lens of Aristotelianism. He was using this sophisticated reasoning within the strictures of this primitive nonsense. So it was basically a game of come up with brilliant ideas and then, massage the biblical text in order to say, oh yeah, that was in the Bible all along, and the Bible's okay with this. But the Bible contributed no wisdom, it contributed nothing to the brilliance of Aquinas and the religious philosophers. It's the same way that Plato was possibly influenced by Eastern mysticism through the Dionysian and Orphic cults. And he got those ideas, but he brought Greek rationality to bear and gave those disgusting primitive ideas a dignity they never deserved by interpreting them through a lens of rationality, giving them justification and a more sophisticated interpretation than any of those savages could ever have conceived. Anyway, so I just want to make clear that you should not respect Christianity. Everything good about the West is anti-Christian. Everything good about the West fought against Christianity for millennia. And you should celebrate that. And what that is the rationality of ancient Greece. The secularism without skepticism that was essentially Greek. And was what the Enlightenment was all about. That's Dr. Leonard Peikoff's formulation. Secularism without skepticism. That was the Enlightenment. So, give thanks to the Greeks for what we have today, not to Jesus or Moses. And I want the focus here to be on the positive. Yes, you should denigrate religion because it's primitive mysticism and it's just an intolerable insult that people are trying to give it the credit for what the Greeks did. But more importantly, celebrate the Greeks. It's amazing. Think about this, 500 years before Jesus. You had writing. You had these books, these tomes of Aristotle and Plato and the Greeks. In BC, in BC times, there was this level of sophistication that is just awe-inspiring. We don't even see it today. The idea that Greece, out of seemingly nothing, out of a history that had produced nothing like it, you have this... all those ancient alien shows, if there is evidence for ancient aliens, and I don't think there actually is, this is just a lighthearted comment here, but if anything is evidence for ancient aliens, it's the Greeks. The idea that Aristotle, that somebody like Plato or Thales or any of these people just existed out of a past that had nothing like it anywhere in the world, that this just rose up out of nowhere. You might say, well, that had to be just alien visitors, because how could something this amazing have come out of nowhere? We owe them such an incredible... we owe them everything. There is nothing good that exists today that would exist without the Greeks. The whole world would probably be close to North Korea with more primitive technology if it weren't for the Greeks. So if you want something to revere, if you're sick of the nihilism, give credit where it's due. I know everybody... you need hero worship. You need something to revere. That's legitimate and valid and necessary, but revere the Greeks. Revere the people who deserve it. Don't unjustly give the credit to Christianity. Give it to the Greeks, and especially Aristotle. Contemplating his contributions to the world is exalted and uplifting. So I recommend you do that frequently. I certainly do. If you have any questions about today's episode, you can just send me an email at charles.a.2@gmail.com. You can also visit my website at charlestew.com. There you can find information on and links to all my work, including ways to support it. You can find essays on my website. I'm working on more YouTube videos, analyses of popular fiction. I'm working on several books. I'm doing a lot of stuff, so if you find this content valuable and you want to support it, there's a way you can. And you can check out my YouTube channel and my website and all that stuff to keep up on all the things I'm producing. So, thanks for listening. Let's meet again in episode 22.